to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today, I have Rick Campos on me, self-proclaimed recovering interior designer. Recently, I had the honor and privilege to interview Rick for his 4-year anniversary of his podcast, The Design Biz Survival Guide. We talked about his origin story, how he started his podcast, and how he has become a sought-after business coach for interior designers. During our conversation, I knew that there was so much valuable information running through him about running a design firm that I had to have him on the show officially to pick that apart. Rick is a former director of business development for a notable Orange County design firm, where his daily interactions with architects, builders, vendors, and clients contribute to his broad perspective of the design industry. In 2018, he launched Design Biz Survival Guide, the podcast about life and business for interior design professionals. In addition to launching his podcast, Rick started his consulting business with the emphasis on the business side of design, exclusively for you, interior designers. Rick reminds us that we can be in business for 6 months, 5 years, or 20 years and still have questions about running that business. And trust me, I know that because I have questions still when it comes to WindowWorks, right? The good news is that there are dozens of resources for us to get those answers. And that's just what Rick wanted to talk about today. Before we get to the show, a big thanks to our sponsor, MyDoma Studio, the project management tool for you to organize your communication with your team, your clients, and your trades. Invoices, proposals, presentations, project milestones, all in one place. Go see it for yourself. Go to mydomastudio.com/a well-designed business. Okay, let's get to talking with Rick. Hi, Rick. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. It's so great to chat with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I am thrilled that we're doing this. I mean, I guess not too long ago, maybe a month or so, 2 months ago, I had the honor and privilege of interviewing you for your podcast, The Design Biz Survival Guide, for your 400th episode. What an amazing accomplishment. And of course, I aired that podcast on my feed. It was episode 774. But here's what happened. You know, of course, we've gotten to know each other in real life, but having that conversation with you, I was like, oh, no, see, that's a smart guy. We need more of him. And so that's why we're here today, because that was fun. And we got to learn about your origin story and how you were working in interior design and how you decided to start the Design Biz Survival Guide podcast and how now you're a business coach for interior designers. But I could tell that there was lots of good information in there that we couldn't get to about actually the nuts and bolts of running a design firm. So that's what I'm really hoping to pick apart today. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, let's dig into it. That was a really fun conversation, and I really appreciate you doing it. That was actually for my 4-year anniversary episode, and the response was amazing. And I think my listeners were just as excited that I was speaking with you as I was.
Well, it was fun for all of us. Let's say that, for you, me, and the listeners. So, okay. Today, though, we are going to talk about, I'm going to let you introduce the subject. We talked about it, but I would love for you to introduce the subject because we are of like feathers on this, but you go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, for sure. What I wanted to talk about today is the simple fact that a creative business is still a business. I mean, you and I totally agree on this. I know it's the foundation of your entire podcast. And I think it's such an important conversation to have because, you know, there's two sides to creative business, the creative side and the business side. And if you are choosing to run your own business, it's really important to get that business part honed in. And I know that it can be intimidating, but what I'd like to talk about is how many resources are out there for everyone. I think anybody that's listening right now knows that I'm a resource and that you're a resource. But there are so many resources. They're all around us. And so, I mean, if we can talk about that today and inspire people to start asking questions about their business and leveraging their connections within the design community, I hope it could be a game changer for their business.
I love it. I love it. And so the thing about it is in your experience, both having been an interior designer for many years and now having been a consultant coach to interior designers, what do you think what are the first beginning stages of the challenge, right? And I also want to qualify something, Rick. I know both you and I often address this conversation to entrepreneurs, design entrepreneurs that are newer in the field, right? And so those beginning challenges like, oh, I got to pay attention to the finances. Oh, I have to know what my bookkeeper's doing. But I also know, and I'm sure you do as well, that there often is new revelations that come along. So when maybe you're in business 3 years and maybe you hit the ground running and within 3 or 4 years, you're tracking to hit $1 million in sales. And now there's a new level of challenges that come along. Like, I don't think the challenges are restricted solely to us when we start our business. I know that we have new challenges that we have to constantly keep looking around. And like you said, look for the resources because the business evolves, our knowledge evolves, but we're always needing to know the next thing. So do you think that maybe we could talk about it from that perspective, not so much a startup, but maybe 10 years down the road, the types of things that you have to face and kind of say, hey, this is time to address that?
Absolutely. And you couldn't be more right. It's funny, when I started consulting, I thought that, you know, all of my clients were going to be new business owners and that I was really just going to impart everything that I learned during my journey of starting my business and running another business, you know, to help them get their business off the ground. But as it turned out, I did more work with designers who have actually been in business for much longer than me. And so, you know, in short, we all have the same kind of questions. We're just in a different place in our business. The questions are the same, but the circumstances are slightly different.
And the thing is, the stakes are higher,
For
right?
sure.
So if I'm already, and like there was one designer that was a part of a Lou University class, and I will never forget this, and I bring it up constantly. You know, I said, why did you decide to take this class? And she said, Luann, I feel like I am racing down the road at 60 miles an hour and I'm trying to build the car as it's running, right? And so, and that is a challenge that happens to us, whether it's the 3-year mark, the 5-year mark, the 10-year mark. WindowWorks is facing it at the 40-year mark. Okay. Literally, we are regrouping, revising, trying to figure things out. And in our case, it's because, you know, because of the pandemic, our company has grown by $1 million or more 3 years in a row, adding $1 million of revenue, gross sales. Like, that's an insane challenge. And so for you and I both know that there's designers out there that were doing 500K that are doing $1 million. They were doing $1 million. Now they're doing 2 million. And to your point, you know, there are resources on how to get this help. And so let's talk about some of the challenges that you face when you're working with the designers, and these new levels of like, holy cannoli, is this really happening? I thought I understood all of this.
Because you're right, because in this business, time really flies. So before you know it, 2, 3, 5 years have passed and you look at your numbers and you're like, oh my God, I still feel like I just started and look at where I am, you know, which is a very exciting part about this business. But, you know, I think if you're a new business owner, you're asking questions like, how do I get this business off the ground? How do I get my finances dialed in? How do I attract, you know, the right clients? How do I start growing my team? All of those type of responsibilities. And then when you're in business for 3 to 5 years or maybe longer, you're still kind of asking yourself those same questions. And I think it's important to note that if you're a new designer, don't be afraid to ask the questions. And if you're a seasoned designer, don't feel like I've been in business so long that I shouldn't be asking those questions. That you're always going to have questions, much like you just said, Luann. 10, 20, 30 years into your business, you're always going to have questions because things are constantly changing. And, there's amazing resources like these podcasts, and there's so many events and resources for designers to ask those questions and get the answers. But what I want to, remind designers is that the answers are really kind of all around you. You're surrounded by the answers. I mean, one of the biggest game changers for me, I started my design business in 2007, and I started in a place where I felt like I couldn't ask questions. People were not sharing information. And, it was very disheartening for me. And so I made a commitment to myself to always be open and to be willing to share information about my business to help other business owners. But then by the time I kind of stepped away from the business of design and moved into what I'm doing now in like 2018, it was totally different. I was literally surrounded by an entire community of designers who were willing to share everything and anything. I mean, that's when the community over competition light bulb really went off.
You know what? I agree with you. And it's funny because I started the podcast in 2016. And of course, Window worked side by side all those years with the interior design industry, working with them as colleagues and being part of their extended team as their window treatment provider, but not being in it. And you see, the window treatment industry, we've always been very open and sharing. I go back to when Window Works was a franchise, and we would have annual meetings, and we would literally all sit there and just tell our numbers, our gross margins, our profits, what do we pay our employees? And it continued with Exciting Windows when we were first members and now owners of Exciting Windows. And so I didn't start the podcast thinking, hey, I got to be part of the people out there that are helping others talk about things so they can get better. I started it assuming that there was an open dialogue and conversation. And to your point, like I'm sure like when you started yours and mine after it was on the a year or so down the road, people were consistently saying, wow, this is really contributing to changing the rhetoric and changing the community and the conversation. I was like, oh, you guys didn't help each other before? Oh, that stinks.
You thought you were joining the conversation, and really the conversation wasn't even happening.
Exactly.
Like you were saying with, being in a room of other business owners that are relatable, these questions that you have about your business and things that you need to talk about, like numbers and margins and onboarding and things like that. You really have to have those conversations with other people who are in the business. I'm sorry, but we live in a time where everyone thinks you can Google it or YouTube it. And I'm here to tell you, you cannot Google or YouTube your business of design. That is not an appropriate tool. It's a resource every now and then, but you need to get out. I think people need to get out of that mindset of Googling it and YouTubing it and actually get back into that mindset of having conversations and exchanging information.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. And I think that, of course, we have your podcast, my podcast, and, Michelle Williams' podcast. There's different podcasts that address the industry, right? And the thing about it is it's there, and you can, at least mine, I'm not sure about your both of yours. Like, you can go to my website and look at the collections. Okay, I need to know about my numbers. All these podcasts talk about my numbers. Okay, I need to know about the startup process. They know, okay, I need to know about marketing. Okay, I need to know about hiring. And they're, grouped by collection so that the thing that's challenging you now, you can go and work on, right? And then beyond that, right, to your point, it's take it to real life, right? Take it to real life. If you're in a Facebook group, we've got Veronica Solomon's Facebook group, Claire Jeffords. Do you have a Facebook group too?
I don't have a Facebook group. That's really not my jam, but I know that a lot of people, participate in them and that they're a good resource.
Yeah. So these are Cheryl Clennenden, these are other leaders in the industry that have Facebook groups. And, I have witnessed so many people take the relationship on Facebook to in person. So when you come to High Point or Las Vegas market or Dallas market or, any regional event that might be in your area, and be willing, right, Rick, to say, hey, I'm going to be at XYZ. Anybody here going? And I have watched, and people have come up to me and said, so and so was on your show, and I reached out when I found out that I was coming, and blah blah blah, and now we are doing weekly work jams with each other, helping each other stay accountable. It's not only that there's information out there, to your point, but you have to be willing to put yourself out there to take what you listen to passively, which is valuable, but take it to that next level of being willing, as your point is, to ask the question and say, how do you do it, right?
Yeah, and I love seeing those connections happen. It's so exciting to me. I mean, I make an effort every market to do a happy hour so that listeners can connect with each other and maybe even meet people that were on the podcast, but just give them a place to make connections. I don't know if you've listened to, there's a podcast out there called Hot Young Designers Club. It's kind of new and it's kind of funny. It's a great podcast. And Sean and Rebecca, they actually met on Instagram. And Sean lives in Southern California. Rebecca lives in Northern California. And they met for the first time at Vegas Market. Fast forward, they've become fast friends, great business mentors to one another, and they started a podcast. Like, to me, that's the ultimate example of leveraging your design community. You're literally surrounded by them, even through social media. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So when designers do get together and they have the opportunity, what are some of the questions that you experience that they're looking to understand from each other?
Oh my gosh. I mean, everybody wants to talk about pricing.
Right. Yep.
And I mean, and that right there tells me that everyone in the room knows that if you want to talk about pricing, you've got to be in a room of designers to talk about pricing, because no one else can really relate to it, because no one else does it quite like the design industry does it. It's complex and it doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. And so that's usually the number one topic for me. Even when I'm consulting, one of the first questions that comes up is, hey, this is my pricing structure. Where does it land based on what you've seen, out there? What is the market bearing? But, and having that pricing conversation is really important, because we live in a time right now where things are changing like crazy. And, this inflation is not helping any. There's so many factors contributing to how we do business and how we generate revenue and generate profit for our businesses. And so I think having that open dialogue with each other is so important, because I've seen and heard firsthand designers say, hey, you know what? We kind of all do the same thing, but this is what I do different. And someone's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I should try that. And it's that sharing, like, what works for me, it might work for you. And you know what? It might not work for you. But just being a part of that conversation and walking away with one or two or three new ideas to enhance your business model and possibly increase your profitability, that's gold.
Yeah, 100%. I also would second that. It's something around the numbers, right? So it's, do I price flat fee or hourly? How much markup do I put on things? Do I give, I hate to say the word, do I give a discount on product? Do I give my trade markup? Like, make me crazy just to say those things out loud. But, that is really where it is. It's like, how do I price the design portion of it? How do I price the procurement? Do I charge for procurement? Do I charge for freight? Do I do a flat fee for freight? Do I, invoice every blasted dollar that it costs me to do freight? It's how is it done? And what I find is that when I'm working in smaller groups with designers, which is the ideal place to do this, right? In smaller groups, is that, to your point, there is certain things that you're probably going to find 4 or 5 doing similarly or exactly, and then this one does this and this one does that, and it's like, oh, aha moments are flying all over the place, right? So it's funny because
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny because we had a mastermind of 2 million plus firms that my cousin Eileen Hahn and I did during the pandemic. And I've told a story once before on the show, and I think it bears repeating. At that level, and you tell me if you experienced this when you worked in luxury design, Rick. At that level, each of these firms, there were 8 people in this mastermind. Every single one of them had a spreadsheet of every single vendor or trade resource that they use and product line. So it would be lighting, tile, whatever it was. And they had a set markup that they put to that product. And so that, because the thing is, when you are running a firm and it's you and maybe a bookkeeper and maybe an assistant of some sort or whatever, your hand is pricing every single project. There isn't somebody else that's just magically coming up with whatever price you're going to give your client. But when your firm gets bigger, now you have project leads and senior designers that are responsible for pricing the project. And, you still as the principal are probably reviewing it to a certain level. Once you get to 5, 6, 7, 8 million, maybe there's somebody else in there reviewing it. But I would say up to 3 to 4, you're probably reviewing the pricing. But you must empower other people on your team to create the proposal price, right, Rick? Like that all makes sense so far, right? Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. And so what happened was, in this one aha moment, we started talking about, everybody, do you have a spreadsheet? They're like, of course we have a spreadsheet. How could anybody get anything done if I wasn't in the room if we didn't have a spreadsheet, right? So then they started asking, what's your markup on this one? And then finally, there was, enough discussion that I said to them, you know what, maybe it'd be easier if you just all share each other's complete spreadsheet and then review it. And then next week, we'll talk about any big ahas or lessons you might have gotten from it, because it got to be tedious. We're not going to sit here and go through 50 items and just everybody compare it, right?
Right.
Well, here was the thing. It was the most amazing thing. We came back the following week for the mastermind, and the one designer says, I want to share, we always come with a win, right? What's your win? I want to share my win. My win is that I went through the spreadsheet, and me with forgetting numbers. I'm horrible at actually the real numbers, but it was, she goes, literally every single one of you had a markup for tile that was within 3 or 4 points of each other, that I was, say, whether she was 5 or 6 points below. So I have no idea what tile gets marked up. Let's say all the other designers were between 15 and 18%, and she was 10 or 12 or 13%. And she was like, when I watched that every one of you was in that range and I was in this range, she goes, I immediately changed our documents for the whole team. Now we're marking it to this level. But here was the major point. She said, then I went and calculated last year's numbers, what we sold on tile, and what the difference in revenue to the firm would have been if we had the new markup. And it was like $45,000 or $50,000. Like, not one more person that she have to pay. There was no overhead attached to that number. And maybe it was $17,000. You know me, I can't remember the numbers, but it wasn't like, and we would have made $10 more. It was like, I remember feeling like that could have been like an admin salary, whatever it was. And that's the power in being open and having the space to ask the questions, right?
Totally. It was a win for that designer. That alone was a win for them. It was a game changer for their business. And it wouldn't have happened if they didn't have that conversation, if they didn't all agree to share that spreadsheet and to be transparent. We spend all this time talking about transparency with our clients. Oh, I want to be transparent with you and I will share everything with you. I run a transparent business. But we don't always have that conversation or practice of transparency, with our allies, with our fellow design professionals. Mm-hmm. And, I will say, like I said earlier, when I started my business in 2007 and when I kind of left the actual business of design in 2018, as far as just creatively, like we talked about in my interview on my podcast, I've always worked in the high-end luxury market. And, for a minute there, I thought, well, if people aren't communicating and sharing, it's certainly not happening at this level. But your story just reminded me of, when I left there, we had a, I don't know, call it an alliance, if you will. I
Mm.
mean, there's two or three other designers at our level. They were the ones that we were competing for all the jobs. Whenever we would bid for a project, it was usually two or three of them on it as well. And
Mm.
one of us would get it. And then, the rest of us would move on to the next project. And you would think, okay, so these three design firms probably talk the least, pardon me. When in reality, we were in communication all the time
Love it.
because one day we were like, I wonder if they interviewed for this job. I wonder if the client asked them what they asked us to do, which is crazy. And
Mm.
it's like, you know what? Let's call and ask. And we
Mm.
started calling each other and asking each other questions. And then it turned into a situation where we weren't calling, but they were calling us saying, hey, I just got out of an interview with XYZ and you're probably next on the list. Heads up.
Yes.
probably not probably not a good fit for any of us. So, fair warning sort of thing. And even when it was a great opportunity, we would still communicate with each other and say, who got that job? You got that job? Oh, that's great. It's such a great opportunity. Good for you.
Well, I love,
Um,
love, 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 love that. Like beyond love. I beyond love that, Rick. Because the
yeah.
thing about it is that even if you guys are sharing actual details. This we do flat fee, we do hourly, that we do charge for procurement, we do a flat fee on a flat number on freight, whatever it is. There's still differences in probably process, which is so core to how a project is going to be executed, and also differences in aesthetic, and also differences in just culture, right? And so the thing is, what I say all the time, I've done a billion solo episodes on a version of this and written for Window Fashion Magazine and AD Pro on this exact same thing. People are buying people and process, not product, right? And so what I
hmm
say, what I mean by that is and I've said this before, we expect every consumer out there, they expect all three of the firms that you are mentioning, yourself and the two others, the other three others. They expect that they're going to get a beautiful design. They're not worried about that. They vetted you, they looked at
Right.
your Instagram. That's a given. Now what they're doing is they're interviewing for how is the project managed and who are the people that are going to manage that project. They are actually also not really at its core using price as a differentiator. Once you get to whatever lane you're in, I've used that example all the time. If I'm going to buy a house, I tell the realtor, my top line number for a house is $1 million, and it'd be swell if I could spend $750. The realtor doesn't start showing me houses at $350 just because I can afford them. Like she doesn't, right? Like she takes me literally to $1 million ones and 1,230,000. If you know, I mean, and like, isn't that what happens, right? And so,
Yeah,
the
totally.
thing is, your consumer in that example, there's the four of you high-end luxury firms. You've seen the consumer interview any number of you or all of you, and they are expecting the price point to be a certain price point. They are expecting the design to be at a certain level. Those are the givens. They are not worried and saying, oh, that firm was really great and they were, $40 an hour less on their hourly. No, ma'am. No, sir.
hmm
That is not how they're going to make their decision based on the people and the process that each of you are able to represent in the opportunity that you have to pitch. Do you agree?
I totally agree with
Mm.
that. And I think that's why we had such a strong alliance with those firms is because we already knew that we all pretty much charged the same
Yeah.
thing and we were delivering the same level of service and the same finished product. And so what that allowed us to do is it allowed us to share with each other what was important to the client. It's kind of
Right.
like when someone calls you out of the blue and you fail to ask them, "How did you hear about me, by the way?" Like you always want to ask that question. And just like if you're interviewing for a design project and you don't get it and you fail to ask, I appreciate the opportunity. I wish we could have worked together. Sounds like you hired someone else. Can you tell me what it was about me that maybe didn't work for you or why you hired the other firm? It will just help me, better my business. And we don't always have those opportunities, but by having this alliance, I keep saying that word because I can't think of a better one.
Mm.
We're able to have that conversation with each other and understand, oh, they picked you and this is why. So this is what was important to them. And you learn stuff about your business.
Right. You absolutely do. And so, you know what that reminds me of, having that question as part of your process? That reminds me of having what I always call the autopsy of every project. And I agree with you that it's a great practice to have that as part of, even if it's among your team. You know, anybody have any idea of what would you guess why we didn't get this project? You know, blah, blah, blah. Because as you said, sometimes you get to ask the client, sometimes you don't. And so, but to have it as part of your process, to look at it, even if it's just yourself or internally with your senior level team, because you do learn something about yourself and your business, to your point, right?
Oh, 100%. And see, Luann, what I think we're doing right now is we're giving designers tons of different topics to talk about with fellow designers. If you're out there wondering, well, what can I ask? What's off limits? What's appropriate? If you're going to have coffee or lunch with a fellow designer, we've just given you a half a dozen examples of questions that you can ask that aren't very intrusive at all, but are just, you know, valuable to your business. It's valuable to theirs and it's valuable to yours. Next time you're having, you know, lunch with a fellow designer, ask them, what does that autopsy look like?
Right,
for your business?
Right.
And maybe I should adopt that for mine, because if anybody is going to help guide you, it's going to be a fellow designer, because they're already doing it and it already relates to design.
100%. And I would be in favor of, if it was somebody that I met, like sometimes we meet at an event, right? I mean, and I'm going to want to ask you about your retreat coming up in October, but you know, sometimes you meet somebody at an event like that, or my Power Talk Friday tours, whatever it is, or just at market. And sometimes you just hit it off with somebody, right? You do. You just click, your personalities click, blah, blah, blah. But when you want to take it to that next level, I would suggest, and I would love to know if you have any additional suggestions, that before you just start to ask the kind of questions about the business side of it, is, you know, you just say, are you open to, you know, we get along, this has been a great time, a great day, a great weekend, whatever. And I'd love to, you know, follow up and have a Zoom meeting with you in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And I'd love to be able to find a space where we actually help each other on a meaningful level, where we can and feel, we do feel comfortable asking, you know, not just surface questions, but, you know, in the weeds questions about our pricing and our fees and things. Does that sound good to you? Because for me, if you ask permission for that, if somebody really doesn't want to, that doesn't mean you can't still be like a market friend that you have a good time with, right? But maybe somebody's not ready for it yet, and I would rather spend my time and leave that event knowing, oh, I got a bestie. You know, we're going to do this, right?
Completely. I agree with that so much. And that's definitely a conversation that needs to happen. And I think that if you're willing to ask that question, you're going to be very surprised at the response. You know, I found more often than not, you know, the response is, really, you know, I thought I could learn something from you. You think you can learn something from me? And then all of a sudden that exchange begins to occur, because we've talked about this a lot of times on the podcast, because I like to talk to designers about their journey and how they got to design. And as you know, so many designers, for us, it's a second or third career. So we have backgrounds, and a lot of times they're valuable backgrounds in marketing and sales and accounting and all kinds of really valuable backgrounds that would benefit, you know, the business of design. And so, you know, very often you may think that you don't have a lot to offer to that exchange, when in reality you do.
I love that. You know, that's another question that could be added to the list of questions to ask a colleague is there something in your background that you take to the design business that is specifically valuable to you? You know, Rick, on the show, we call it our Erica Ward transferable skills because Erica, way back, I think she was I have to look it up, for crying out loud. I don't know if she was episode 6 or 9 or something, but she was the very first person that brought that to light to us, that she said, you know, if your background is in finance, do not be afraid to put that on your About You page. And her background was in high-level project management. I want to say it was property development, but project management. And she handled multi-million-dollar projects that she had to do on time and on budget. And so what she explained to us is when I look at you and you're debating over your $100,000 living room, you can be sure I've got that nailed down. Like, you can trust me. And so she said to us, us, talk about the things. And sometimes I've had people on the show talk about their teaching background, and it
Oh yeah.
brings to the conversation with their clients and their consumers about how I love to really show you and help you understand how I'm not just picking a random sofa, that it's working with the whole room, whatever. But I love that, because I imagine sitting across from somebody and asking them, what is a skill that you bring from another area of your life, and how does it help you in the business? Because imagining listening to someone specifically share their skill, I would start to think, oh, do I have that skill? Do I have the ability to develop that skill? Do I have a part of that if I leaned into it, that I could, or wow, I'm never going to be able to do that. And that's a great skill that I should hire out for. One of the next people that I hire should have this skill. So that seems like that's also a very meaty conversation in there. Do you agree?
Totally. And it's not just about like having a background in finance, although I know we talk about business and finance a lot. It's not just about having a background in business and finance, but listen, if I'm in that room of people and someone says, I'm transitioning into the business of design, but I've actually been in sales for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, come sit next to me because you know how to sell and I'm going to learn some stuff from you.
Right.
Like, you know how to generate leads, you know how to follow up on those leads. I mean, that was my weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of designers can relate to that. So it's not just about, crunching numbers. It's about everything from sales and marketing to legal. Heck, if you used to be a psychologist, we could all use that. We could all
100%.
use you if you have a background in psychology.
100%, right? Like, it's so true.
Mm.
I've had people tell me they've had a background in psychology, they've had a background in teaching, a background in sales. How about just a corporate background in, Cheryl
Hmm.
Luckett in HR and nutrition, and just managing a department. Right? Just, it doesn't matter what the corporation is. Managing a department is like managing a little business, right? Whether that little business is doing 500,000 or $5 million, right? And it's funny because I just mentioned on a recent episode, and I just want to bring it again because Christy Liu was on the podcast several years ago, and she's got 4 kids, maybe 5, I don't recall which. And I remember her saying, having, this many kids under the age 10 at the same time, if you think I can't wrangle painters, carpenters, wallpapers, you are seriously underestimating me. Like, I will get this thing
Seriously.
organized. All of these people have to leave every single day with backpacks, shoes, hair, teeth, everything, homework, all science projects, all done. I got your project. Don't worry. It'll be organized, and that's a legit
100%.
thing, right?
Yeah, like if you can manage a room of fifth graders, you can manage a design project for sure.
Exactly. So talk to me a little bit about your Design Biz Survival Retreat, your Design Biz Retreat. It's coming up in October. You've done it how many times before, Rick?
So this October will be the 3rd annual Design Biz Retreat.
Nice.
So we've done it 2 years in a row. The last 2 years that has been in Palm Springs, and this year we're bringing it to Orange County, California, to change it up a little bit. But you know what it is it's basically what we were just talking about. It's an opportunity to be in a room among fellow designers and talk about the business of design. We bring in speakers on different topics. This year we're going to lean a little more luxury this year. So we're going to have topics like selling luxury, the state of the luxury market, working with custom home builders, all kinds of great topics. And what's nice about it, if I must say so myself, is that, we keep it small. We keep it small. And so I limit it to 24 designers. And the reason that I do that is because my intention is over the course of 2 days, I want every single designer in the room to have the opportunity to talk to one another and get to know one another and leave there feeling like you have a community, like you have that tribe that maybe you've been looking for and that you've been missing, or to just add people to your existing tribe, so that you can have these conversations outside of the retreat and begin to ask those questions that are going to help you grow your business. Just the bonding experience alone, I think that's probably the most exciting part of retreat, and I've got the biggest feedback on that. So it's really exciting.
It's amazing. Anything like this, any field, whether it's design, it's window treatments, like at Exciting Windows, we do a conference twice a year for exactly this reason, because getting together with people who do what you do is one of the best, most enjoyable ways to push the envelope on your business to and I don't even like at Exciting Windows, we have so many people who have no interest in growing their firm beyond the size that it is. Maybe it's a 3-person firm, a 5-person window treatment company, a 6-person, but so what happens is, even if you're not interested in growing your company larger to higher dollar volumes and to more people, when you get together with other people who do what you do, you also learn how to do what you do more efficiently. Right. So that you are creating more wealth and more profit for you, so that you start to, really have the opportunities and the life that you went into being a self-employed entrepreneur to begin with was supposed to bring you. Right.
Completely. Yeah. And I love it. It's amazing to me the things that people will say out loud in a room full of 24 people as opposed to a room full of 100 people or 100 or 200 people. It's very different. And, we kind of, create this camaraderie among everyone where, you're amongst friends. And so you can ask questions and you can say things. And, we've had moments where someone would say something and the entire room's like, you what? Let us help you. Girl, come sit next to me, sort of thing. And it's great. It's amazing. We have breakout sessions, and then they have their own breakout sessions. We've been on break before, and you come back and it's like, why is everyone around her computer? And it's like half the room is around her computer because she's like, hey guys, this is how I do it. Literally, I'm going to show you.
Right.
That kind of stuff. It's so cool.
So talk to me a little bit about this selling luxury. This is an area of your expertise. It's something you're going to discuss at the retreat, but is there something that comes to mind that you could share here as an idea or a concept or a practice with selling luxury that all of the rest of the thousands of us that are, here with you today are not going to be able to get with you at your summit? So,
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to share. I'm actually doing a presentation on the client experience, which I'm really excited about. And that's a whole other can of worms. And Thomas Lavin is actually doing our presentation on selling luxury. And Thomas has 2 amazing showrooms here in Southern California, one in Los Angeles and one in Orange County. And he's an incredible man, and he's very knowledgeable. And what he's going to do for us is he's really just going to talk about these luxury products and what goes into them and why they are luxury products and why they have that price attached to them. I think that a lot of times designers, they see a price tag and they immediately think, my client's not going to go for that. I'm moving on. When what you should really be thinking is, you know what, my client hired me to show them something different and to expose them to a level of design that they don't normally have access to. So I'm going to share this product with them. And rather than just say this product is $16,000, I'm going to explain to them every single one of these items is handmade. 3 different artisans are used. Somebody does the metal, someone does the finish, someone does the wood. And, it's completely customizable. It can be in any finish that you want. Things like that can help you relate to your client the value. Even if it's 3 or 5 or 10 times what that client may think is a normal investment, if you're able to relay that value and how special that item is, then it's very likely that they're going to go for it. And I've always said there's nothing worse than specifying products and goods for your clients, sharing with them ideas, furnishings, whatever the case may be. And then when the project is done, have them come back and say, oh my gosh, I saw this. Why didn't you ever tell me that this was out there? I love this. Show them, don't shop with your own checkbook. Show them what you think is right for the job. Shoot for the stars, educate them, inform them. And, Thomas has a great background in product knowledge, and his showroom represents some amazing high-end luxury product lines. And so I'm really excited about his presentation because I think everyone's going to leave with a better understanding and a strategy to share those products and goods with their clients to not only elevate their projects, but elevate their profitability as well.
Well, Rick, I have to say how powerful that is. As I was listening to you, I was literally thinking to myself, this is, you said a few moments ago that selling wasn't your superpower. This is one of the number one concepts in selling luxury is as the person who is presenting the item is to really know and understand and have an appreciation and a belief in why something is $16,000 and all the other things in the price category are $8,000. If you if you own that information, if you really, like when you were saying the wood is made by one artisan, the metal is made by another, the glass is made by another, like my brain is just starting to picture all of the layers of labor and design that have gone into this product. And it was a fake product you were talking about. And I was already all the way down the road. And then
I sold you.
You did. You absolutely did. And then what I'll just say as a sales tip to everyone listening, if you understand all of that in the quality and the craftsmanship and you own it and you appreciate it and you can attach story to it, now the checkbook is open 100%. It's like, when I think about it, I can't not mention Jaipur Living because Jaipur Living's story of their origin story and the culture story in that company is so powerful that, the Manchaha collection are one-of-a-kind rugs. And so, okay, you tell a luxury client, this is the example in living what you were talking about. You tell a luxury client, oh, that's a one-of-a-kind rug, and I'm going to make a price up. I don't know what the Manchaha collection costs, right? It's $12,000. Oh, that's nice, but that one over there looks pretty, and it's only $8,000. Should we use that one? And you're like, but this one, right? But when you say, to your point, if you describe how the Manchaha collection is, it's a local artisan. They blah, blah, blah. You got to go listen to the Jaipur. I'm not going to go through it here, but it's literally what you just said, Rick. It's going through the whole thing, and then the icing on the cake is the mission, vision, values of Jaipur Living is the icing on the cake. And so if you're doing that explanation and you believe in the company that you're talking about and their artisans and their product, and you say, and I've worked with this company for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, my sales rep for this company is amazing. The customer service, like you add something like that to it, I mean, it's done. It's like open that checkbook, right?
And listen, even if they don't buy it, at least you've informed them and you've educated them.
Love
and
that.
that's what they've hired you for. And
Right.
you've also demonstrated a passion and a knowledge for what it is that you do. I mean, that leaves an impression. And let me take it even more full circle, going back to Thomas doing this presentation, going back to asking questions and having conversations. You don't have to come to my retreat to hear this presentation, although I would love for you to come to my retreat to hear this presentation. But Thomas, you can walk into his showroom and he'll answer any questions that you have. He'll give you a lesson on selling luxury at the drop of a dime.
Oh.
That's what I'm talking about when I say get out there, make connections, ask questions, don't be afraid to have conversations. It's out there. It's all around us.
I love it. I love it so much. And I really do want to just emphasize what you just said there. You're not going to sell it every time. 100%. You might present 5 things in a room that are like that, and they, because the budget's a real thing, might pick 1 of them or 2 of them. But to your point, you are showing your passion, showing your expertise, and I love the point that you made a few moments before all that, which is no one's going to come to you then and say, why is everything in my house ordinary? Because, I'm finding my friend has these one-of-a-kind stuff. You didn't show it to me. You didn't tell me about it. And that's the designer that's saying, oh, well, you told me the budget for the room was 50 and I couldn't put those things in. It's like, no. There's a way to respect the budget. Cheryl Clennenden was on the show and talked about, Shay McGee, when she was on the show, talked about there's a way to respect the budget, but still make sure you deliver elevated design, that if 1 or 2 pieces call for that, out of that box, this is really going to be a showstopper. It is up to you to do that. Right, Rick?
For sure. 100%, 100%. Because, they've entered that agreement of working with you for a reason. They're relying on your expertise. They're relying on your resources and that information that only you can provide them. So go for it. Just,
Right.
pick the product that's the best product for the design, share it. You can always go backwards from there, but you can never go forward. Once
Mm-hmm.
that sale is closed, it's closed. And so, you can never go back.
I love it. I love it. How about one tip from your client experience presentation as a teaser? So now people are really going to want to go.
From the client experience presentation, I think that I'm going to talk about a lot of things that people are already talking about and may already know. But what I'm going to add that I feel designers may not be talking about, we're going to find out, is all of the players that are involved in that client experience, because it extends beyond just the design principle. It extends beyond the design team in your office. It extends into all of the people that are involved in your projects. So we're going to talk about how your service providers, your tradespeople, your relationships with your builders and contractors, how all of those relationships impact the client experience, because your client is not just interacting with you on a design build. They're interacting with all of those other people as well. And so I learned that it's really important to align with those people and make sure that you're having conversations with them and that they understand how you do business, because they're kind of a representation of your business. They're an extension of your business. We talk about that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm going to emphasize in my presentation is really just kind of including them into your client experience, integrating them into that process, so that it really heightens that level of service to your client.
I love that. And it is so important. And the designers that are, that have reached a level of, I'll call it mastery, of
Mm-hmm.
proficiency in servicing the luxury market. I have noticed through WindowWorks. At WindowWorks, we work with a lot of designers from all over the country, from the New York metro area, mostly luxury, legit luxury designers, because of course that's the level that is specifying window treatments, of the detail and stuff that we do. And and like Sandra Funk comes to mind. Anytime she onboards a new vendor or trade, there's a conversation and a document that she reviews with us. Here's what I expect
Mm-hmm.
from you. I mean, even things like down to, Lou, I don't want Billy parking your WindowWorks van in my customer's driveway. like, like,
Right.
he can load it up, bring it up to the driveway, unload it. But, like what happened, and was funny because I said to her one time, what's the deal with that? And she said, Lou, one time I had a vendor trade at the house for the day working. And the next day, the client called me and said there were oil stains on my driveway. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember thinking, did you just call me to tell me that? Like, right? and and she said, and they went on to say, and whichever trade it was parked in the thing. Now, the fact of the matter is it could have been the client's own car. It could have been a friend visiting. The oil stains could have been there for a week. But she just said, okay, not on my watch, my trade. So now she's like, well, I have to say, in the 10 minutes that it took them to unload the truck, possibly, and I'm sorry. However, my people are on the street. So something as little as that is what you and I both know that luxury firms are paying attention to, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's the little things. It's the simple little things that you already do in your office, that you've already established that expectation with your client. And so that needs to kind of trickle down to everyone that you work with. Like you said, from parking in the driveway to, hey, if you're a tradesperson on my project and the client has a question, always call me, never try to answer the question.
Yes.
Always call, never text. We don't text, we always call. Just little things like
Right.
that, because the client's already used to a style of communication.
Mm-hmm.
I've already shown them that I don't text. I
Mm-hmm.
always call if you have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And so if my people that are helping bring this vision together, if they're involved in that process, they should follow that same protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Simple stuff,
Mm-hmm.
simple stuff that really has an impact on the client experience.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And you do have to revisit it. I mean, with WindowWorks, the team is growing, by leaps and bounds. Every time I turn around, I think I had 4 employee interviews on Monday. It's like,
Oh my gosh.
right? And the thing is, you learn your lessons. We're, like you said, internally, your protocols. you know your standards, you know what you deliver, and then you hire a new person. And I just had this situation yesterday. Somebody has more than 8 years experience in selling custom window treatments. And I explained that if we offered the position to him, that he was going to spend 90 days at minimum going to every single appointment with Kim on the window treatment appointments. And he just was like, I don't need 90 days. And I said, no, see, in that 90 days, you're not necessarily learning how to measure or design or order or coordinate window treatments. You're learning the Window Works way. You're learning the way we work with our clients. That's what the 90 days is for. That Kim hears you speak and interact, and she can get in the car with you afterward and say, no, sir, we don't do that. We don't say that. Or you see how she speaks and interacts and the service and what we deliver, right? Because this is, as you grow your team, these are things you have to pay attention to, right?
Completely. Like I could probably go and sell some window treatments, but I got to be able to do it your way. I have to be representative of your company, of your business, and the level of service that you provide. That expectation that has been set, we have to maintain that.
I love it. So these are all the kinds of conversations that you are going to have at your retreat in October 20th and 21st in Orange County.
Absolutely.
And they can get information on your website, which we will put the links in the show notes. And 24 very lucky designers are going to be there with you in October. That's exciting, Rick. That's very exciting. Congratulations on that.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's really easy to find. Just go right to the website. It'll be in your show notes, and there's a tab for it. Click the tab. I keep it super simple. If you're interested in attending, just hit the button. It sends me an email, and we start the process. So it's not complicated. And if you say that you heard about it on Luann's podcast, I'll hook you up.
Oh, well, isn't that exciting? That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate so much your conversation today, Rick. I love having a conversation with someone that look, his season has been around the bush a couple of times and really does understand the nuances of running the back end of the business, everything from selling luxury to the client experience to being open and willing to have the conversations, within your team, with colleagues, with vendors, with trades. It's all so important. And it's so clear to me that you are engaged in that and knowledgeable and walking the walk and talking the talk, whatever that saying is. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks, Luann. This has been a blast. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So here's the thing. Rick's first point is we will always be asking ourselves questions throughout all the stages of our business. And this is so true. Yes, it's clear in the beginning there's many questions, but after 40 years, Window Works is facing major challenges. I've talked to you often about the growth that the pandemic has brought to Window Works, and this has us asking questions every day, every week. Okay, how can we change this? Why should we do this way? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so his point is well made that we will always be asking ourselves questions throughout all stages of our business and never feel less than because you're feeling like, I thought I had this together and now I don't feel like I do. This is the territory, okay? And then Rick makes the point that the answers are literally all around us, okay? He mentions the huge resource is each other. Right? That is it. You can Google all day long, but when you have real life connections and conversations with your peers, that's where the value is. And I keep telling you that the Facebook groups are a great way to meet other designers. I'm a broken record telling you about Veronica Solomon's group, Cheryl Clennonden's group, Nancy Kanzikauer's group, Claire Jeffords' group, right? Join the groups, meet the designers, and then maybe you can take it offline too when you have the chance to meet in person at High Point or Dallas or Las Vegas market, right? I also like that Rick mentioned that regardless of how many years in business, one of the questions that he finds comes up all the time is about pricing, right? How do I charge? How do you charge? Do you do hourly? Do you charge for procurement? How much do you mark up, right? These are things that also I learned in my relationships with you that This question comes up whether you're in business 1 minute or 15 years. Honest to God, it absolutely does. So again, when you've created a little group of peers that you are safe with, don't feel funny to ask the questions about the numbers. All right? Now, another question is interesting to ask your colleagues if there's something in their background that they take to their design business that has proved valuable, right? Because maybe you're missing that in your own experience and like, oh yes, I'm not leaning into that. I'm not sharing that with my potential consumers. So I love asking designers, what did you do before and how does that impact what you do as a designer? All right. Ask yourself the question. Be interesting to see what answers you come up with, right? So here's the thing. It's powerful to be open and to have the space to ask questions, right? This is what Rick's Retreat is about in Orange County. It's an opportunity to do just what we're talking about. Connect with fellow designers, talk about all the things the design business. With only 24 spots, Rick's intent is for everyone to have a chance to get to know each other and leave with that feeling of community. And this year's focus, as he mentioned, is on luxury. And the speaker, Thomas Lavin, oh my goodness, I'm sure this is going to be a treat, right? Talking about luxury products, what goes into them, why they're luxury, why they're priced the way they're priced. This is all information that will make a big difference to you when you do your presentations to your clients about these projects, right? And products, right? And of course, Rick will be talking about the client experience. It was clear, you heard it, that he has really earned his chops in this area. And so I just love and imagine how valuable this would be to be in this room. So if you want in, hurry up and claim one of the 24 spots. You can go to Rick's website at Retreat 2022 at the Design Biz Survival Guide. Okay? What we learn from our peers, our leaders in the industry, helps us grow as business owners. And joining live events like this is what it's about. It's the learning. It's about learning what you didn't know you didn't know. Okay. And I have to say, if you are a window treatment professional, we are having a conference in October of 2022, also in Crystal City, Virginia. And registration will be opening for that soon. So keep a lookout if you are a window treatment professional and looking to connect. And before I go, I want to thank all of you who joined us last week for Inside Voice, Outside Voice with my special guest, Sarah Lynn Brennan. The next Inside Outside Voice will be on August 13th instead of August 4th, because on August 4th, I will be keynoting at the Interior Design Society Conference in Chicago. This 3-day conference is another fantastic opportunity to create the relationships and connections that Rick discussed. You don't have to be a member of IDS to attend the conference. You don't have to have a degree in interior design to attend the conference or to join IDS. IDS recognizes the evidence of being a legit business owner through your body of work, which includes your website, your portfolio, and your experience. I mean, does any one of us want to look at Jonathan Adler and tell him he's not a real designer because he doesn't have a degree specifically in interior design? I don't think so, right? And Jonathan Adler, by the way, is the MC for the Gala Awards dinner the final night of the conference. How cool is that? Other speakers include Kay Whitaker. We all know and love Kay Whitaker. Nancy Ganskalfer, another favorite of all of us here at the show, and Martin Lawrence Ballard, and more. I am delighted to be opening the conference, and I look forward to 3 days of learning, growing, and connecting. Please go to interiordesignsociety.org/conference to register. And if you come, please make sure to introduce yourself to me. All right. Thank you so much, Rick, for joining me. It was such a thrill and so much fun, and I love our relationship, how it continues to grow, and we both continue to benefit from it. And thank you for joining me as well. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.